Hey, gang, welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. I am James Walsh, and this is one of our first ever video interviews. In just a moment, we're going to bring on Sebastian from the Global Wrestling Federation to talk about his time in the GWF as well as his life, which is very interesting after wrestling as well. This is a great interview for a guy who was in the wrestling industry as part of the Global Wrestling Federation on ESPN, on KTVT, after the original run. So this is really interesting stuff. A lot of exchanges with guys like the Ebony Experience, who we now know as Harlem Heat, WWE Hall of Famers Booker T, and Stevie Ray. We hope you enjoy this interview. We did it on video, so we're trying to join the 21st century here. I probably will still do more audio interviews. I just am more comfortable not being in front of the camera, even though I have this handsome face of mine. Hope you guys enjoy this interview. If you do like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment if you want to tell us what you think of what we produced here. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome to the show.
This is Doyle King, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. My name is James Walsh, and joining us today is a gentleman from my childhood who I am so honored to have on the show. He was a big part of the final portion of the Global Wrestling Federation on ESPN. You knew him as Sebastian, but now you could call him Doctor. Dr. Sebastian Mahfood. Are you with me, sir?
I am here.
It's such a pleasure to have you on the line, and it was a shot in the dark when I messaged you because I had no idea if you were even you. So thank you for getting back to me, and thank you for agreeing to talk to an old fan here about your time in the wrestling business.
Oh, sure. Well, I love talking to old fans.
Well, there you
And
go.
you were young at the time. You would have been
about 11.
Yeah,
about
something
11.
like that back when I was doing this. So
Yeah, it's pretty cool because the guys that I've interviewed, I've gotten to become friends with. And it's kind of weird because, like Rod Price, for example, somebody that you actually managed, has become a pretty good friend of mine. And obviously, he's got probably a couple of decades on me, not to throw Rod under the bus, but it's pretty cool that this opportunity has actually earned me friends in the wrestling industry. So, yeah, the global stuff meant a lot to us kids. And I was in New Jersey, by the way, so nowhere near the Dallas Sportatorium. But that's how
you would have been closer to WWF in New York.
Absolutely. That was my introduction into wrestling. But of course, everybody got ESPN, so that was
Sure.
that leveled the playing field. Let's talk about your venture into pro wrestling. How did you end up? First of all, were you a fan? Did you love wrestling before you got involved in it?
I had grown up in the 80s, like a lot of people my age, or my generation, watching professional wrestling on television. My older brother was absolutely fascinated by it, and he was in control of the remote control, which at the time was a novelty to me. We had a television that you had to actually walk up to and change the channels, if you recall. And fix the bunny ears and all of that, the antennas.
Yeah. Smack the side if it's fuzzy. There you go.
That's right. And so my father brought home a new television one day and had a remote control, and I remember my older brother claimed the exclusive right to use the remote control whenever he was in the room. And he would guard that thing like people guard their iPhones today. And every Saturday morning we watched wrestling, which I grew to love, like the Hulk Hogan and the Von Erichs and all of the characters that I eventually worked with at the Sportatorium. And many of them were people who were household names to me in the 80s. So
that's beautiful. And off the interview, you sent me some of the copies of the Grappler. Did you start working on the Grappler before or when you started to be on television? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Kind of thing?
Right. So the Grappler has an interesting history. When I was first introduced to the possibility of working at the Sportatorium, the person who came in as promoter was a guy named Gray Pearson.
Mm-hmm.
So Gray Pearson was the law partner of Don Ray, who was the father of my college roommate, Scott Ray. So I was at the law offices quite a bit, coming and going, seeing Don, seeing, whenever Scott had to go up there to see his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Gray, and Gray and I became friends. He was an established lawyer. I was a college student. But he saw in me somebody who could be helpful to him. So in maybe 1990, 1991, he assisted the Von Erichs and some legal work.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to help address the promotional aspects of the sportatorium to make it more profitable, he volunteered to help in promotions. And so he became a wrestling promoter. And I happened to walk in the office around the time he was pondering how we're going to get the bulletins put together every week. And so he saw me and said, "Hey, Sebastian, you're an English major, right?" And the rest there was history. I said, "Sure, I can put together a bulletin for you." And I put together the Grappler #1, which I sent you a copy of. After going to the sportatorium and meeting people like Hollywood John Tatum and Rugged Rod Price and the kind of people that you've been following, who were working at the sportatorium. Gray said to me, "As long as you're here helping with the bulletin, would you mind like trying to do something in the audience to generate heat?" And I said, "Sure, what's heat?" He said,
Wow.
just get the people going.
Kind of like a babe in the woods. There you go. That's, thrown right into the fire with that. Wow.
Right. So we created a character. We called him Sebastian from Des Moines. A hayseed whose grandmother had always told him, if you could get out of the small town of Des Moines and into the big city of Dallas, you'll be able to make something of yourself. And so I used that line. I walked in, tried to sell the people in the building and the people who were working the place, like Gary Hart and Skandor Akbar and company, on my vision for a greater wrestling world. And so they kicked me out, and they had the ushers throw me out, and we turned that into a publicity event. So I came back the next week, disguised as Mean Joe Greed.
Mean Joe Greed. Okay.
I don't know if you remember that guy. He was a car salesman.
Mean Joe Greed. Okay.
Joe Greed donated a car to the sportatorium, and so we started creating storylines. So whoever won the car, who won a match, would receive the car. And so we had the Battle of the Mannies, Manny Fernandez and Manny Villalobos.
Yes, sir. I remember that vividly.
And so Manny Villalobos won the car, which he desperately needed in order to be able to support his family of his wife and his, I think we said 8, 9, 10 children, however many. So we really built Manny Villalobos into this family man and this great paragon of the American dream and all of this. And then we had Manny Fernandez go out with a sledgehammer and destroy his car. And smash the car. So I showed up pretending to be Mean Joe Greed the next week. And the real Mean Joe Greed walks in and says, "You're not me." Which was a great photo op. I mean, that's how I got introduced. They threw me in. Eventually, I became an assistant to Gary Hart. And then from assistant, I became his partner. And this is the story arc. And from his partner, I ended up firing Gary Hart and taking over because he was slowing me down. And so ultimately, my time at the sportatorium ended when I was beaten up by the sister of the Ebony Experience, Stevie Ray and Booker T, and carted off like a sack of potatoes by the usher, never to be seen again. I came back a few times in cameo. That was basically it. It was about a year from 92 to 93. That was the arc.
Wow. That is amazing. And yes, I remember that story with Manny very well. Manny is another guy, not to be depressing, but another guy who became a good friend of mine. I started talking to him, and it seems like a lot of these guys appreciated that there was people watching. You know, they didn't know how many people were really out there watching at the time, and there was a lot of us. Manny was a good guy, and a cool story is after Manny passed, about a year later, I saw Manny Fernandez on Facebook, and I
Mm.
said, you know, would you be interested in doing an interview? I've been a fan of yours for many years. I remember the story you did with Manny Villalobos, who was a friend of mine, and he said, any friend of Manny Villalobos is a friend of mine. I'll do anything you ask me to. And that shows
Yeah.
you the camaraderie. There was a lot of camaraderie there in the global um, wrestling federation, the Sportatorium. Very, very cool side story there.
Yeah, that is really great. I didn't know that Manny Villalobos had passed. That's
Yeah,
he was an incredible man. I very much enjoyed working with him.
that's coming up on a decade as well. He, and it's such a shame, he was going to go and be a trainer for the WWE. And he worked an independent show either in South Texas or in Mexico. And he took a back bump on a shoddy ring. And he landed on a board that was protruding upwards um, from the ring mat. And it messed his back up all kinds of ways. And he never really recovered from it. I mean, he got back in the ring, but he never was quite the same after it. And I know that that was a big regret of his, that because he would have loved, because Michael Hayes, Michael P.S. Hayes of the Freebirds, is the one that called him and asked him, hey, do you want to be a trainer for WWE? I think he'd still be doing it now if fortunes had been better
Mhm.
for him. But there you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very familiar with the bumps. Uh, I
Yes.
was I was probably maybe 160 pounds, 150 pounds. I
Hmm.
think Doyle King once said I was 120 soaking wet. Um, so Hollywood John Tatum and Rugged Rod Price were in a tag team match, and Tatum, he and I had worked out beforehand. He was going to kick me right in the
Hmm.
chest, and I would take a bump and fall off the. Well, he didn't know how light I was, so when he ran across the ring to kick me, I flew back 12 feet.
Oh, yes. I remember that vividly. In fact, I was talking to Rod Price about that exact spot.
Yeah.
He said he was howling on the apron watching this happen. He was
Right.
I remember that was one of the hugest pops of that era of Global. And I even asked John Tatum about it, and I'm sorry to say he didn't remember it, but Rod remembered it very well,
Sure.
talking about that spot. That free fall that you did, because you shot, if I'm not mistaken, off the ring apron. I
I
mean, that
did.
could have been pretty bad with how far
Well,
you flew.
I flew off the ring apron into the audience. And the thing that kept me going further was there was a banister that
Mm-hmm.
was separating the audience from the ring. And I crashed right into that banister. My glasses, he hit me so hard that my glasses fell off my face and then followed me. So they used it as part of their promo.
Yeah, it was in the
And
intro for
you could
years.
see I'm flying across, the glasses are flying across, and they've got this text that appears on the screen. Do you have what it takes to be a professional wrestler? Join the wrestling school or something like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a stupid question, but
Sure.
did it hurt?
Um, no. I mean, at the moment it happened, all I remember is ending up on the floor. And, I looked at the video afterwards, and had my neck come in at a certain level, it could have very much messed me up.
Oh, yes.
Um, but it didn't. I hit it just right. And the interesting thing was, though I didn't feel any pain from it, and if anything, just a little disorientation at finding myself on the floor.
Mhm.
Um, uh, that was that was common to the kinds of bumps I took. They knew how to kick me and hit me and throw me in a way that didn't hurt, in a way that later I would think, okay, if I'm watching this on television, I really should have been hurt by whatever just happened.
Mm.
Like when Tawanda threw me over the ropes and I landed on the floor, for instance. Um, or when the Tribal Nation,
Yep.
came out with belts and just started beating the heck out of me. Um, but they were professionals. They knew how to mess somebody up without hurting. And I remember there was a chiropractor who donated his time, and he was such a beautiful soul. Every day he would show up on a Friday night because we were filming for the Saturday. Every day that he showed up, he would spend hours working on people's backs, popping their necks, readjusting them. And I told him, I said, they want me to go into the ring against Kit Carson.
Yep.
And I know that I'm going to be beat up quite a bit. And he said, okay, but you got to make it look real on your end. And I said, they know what they're doing when they hit you. You need to respond appropriately, and respond a little more than I had been responding, my life is ending kind of responding.
Right.
So he, on a Thursday night, the night before we were to do this, he brought me out to the ring. I drove out to the sportatorium and we got access to the ring. And he spent maybe 2-3 hours just teaching me how to take a fall, teaching me how to be hit and go down. And so when we did the match with Kit Carson the next night, the original match was only supposed to be 15 seconds. Kit was going to come out. I was going to mace him after Gary Hart distracted James Beard, who was the referee.
Yep.
Kit would go down, and I would throw myself on top of him. That was it, 15 seconds, in and out. And I said to Kit that night, I said, I just received a little bit of training. You want to do something more interesting? And Kit said, sure. And Kit said, what if we play it like this? And Kit came up with the plan. I was like, okay. He knew what he was doing. And we went, however long that video is, 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
Or to put it in the Gen Z parlance, 6 or 7.
6, 7, huh? I have a 16-year-old son, and I actually just like innocently said, I don't know how many there are, maybe 6 or 7. And he came over to me and like slapped me on the back and said, don't do that.
They all go 6, 7, 6, 7.
Yeah, he hates it. I don't know why, but I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a whole thing that's beyond me. I'm too old for that stuff.
I am certain we did things in the 80s that made our parents wonder,
Radical and tubular and all that kind of stuff.
All of it, yeah.
There you go.
So anyway, that's the story of my taking a bump. So I got through the bumps gracefully because of the work that was done with me with our chiropractor. Just an incredibly beautiful soul as well.
Beautiful. Do you remember that person's name?
I don't.
Okay. It's
lost to 35 years of history.
There you go.
But if he is watching this, put a like and a subscribe in the comments. And,
hey, you're doing my work for me. I appreciate that.
Let us know who you are.
That's perfect. You mentioned the match with Kit Carson, and that was a interesting match. You were Phantom X, and it did find its way onto YouTube, whereas most global stuff didn't. But that did find its way onto YouTube, which is pretty cool. Watching it, your comedic chops were pretty on par then too. Very Bobby Heenan-esque with the bump as you're trying to figure out how to get into the ring and you tumble over the top rope and things like that. Was that something that you worked out in advance as well? Did you know how much of this hamming it up you were going to do?
I ad-libbed practically all of it. So once Kit Carson and I had figured out what we were going to do, I said, okay, Kit's going to look good because he's the professional. I got to look like a goof because I'm the amateur. This is my very first match. And of course, the funny thing was Doyle King and company down doing the color. Gary Hart was down there as well, Doyle King and maybe some other people.
Yeah, David Webb, perhaps.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. So
he's the one who thought he was Elvis for a while there.
Exactly. Well, David Webb was very connected with the bump that I took because I had 3 pizza boxes, and I was using them to bait David since he was pretending since he believed he was Elvis. And you know the storylines. We had Maniac Mike Davis who came up with a little monkey on his shoulder all the time, and so it's those 3 pizza boxes that I was going to use to hit the person that Hollywood John Tatum was wrestling. And as I brought the 3 pizza boxes down, I accidentally hit Hollywood John Tatum, which is what caused him to spin around and then kick me instead of the other guy. So actually, he was racing toward the other guy. The other guy ducks, and then Tatum's foot hits my chest. So the storylines themselves were fun, and they facilitated my ability to ham it up. So I go and I get in the ring. Doyle King is saying, that looks like Sebastian. And Gary Hart says, I've been looking for Sebastian all night. He just hasn't shown up.
Right.
And then they talk about, if you wrestle under a mask, you get some anonymity. King's there. He's 120 pounds soaking wet. That is Sebastian. He's even got the glasses. And I hand the glasses to one of the Critters girls. And so when I get in the ring, I remember I had come up with a few clever things to say. I knew sort of what Kit was going to do to me. And you can talk the entire time. You talk under your breath. Okay, I'm going to throw you into the ring, into the ropes now, or I'm going to do a flip, or I'm going to grab you here. So I was being coached the whole time about what was going to happen next. And I remember at one point yelling to the audience, "Quiet, please. I'm wrestling." Which just got them to be even. So the entire thing was generating heat, right? You got to get the audience riled up. You've got to get the people moving. So I did what I could. At one point, I was smoking a pipe. It became a trademark of mine. I would smoke a pipe all the way through. And I remember the fire marshal came in and said that we could have no more smoking in the sportatorium because it was a fire hazard. They were worried the sportatorium couldn't support people with cigarettes flicking them around and things.
Uh-oh. Wow.
But I got permission to keep my pipe. So I would go and blow smoke in people's faces and say, "You're just jealous because I can smoke in here and you can't."
That's perfect. And I love that. And you also sent me a copy of the flyer that you used to hand out. And you told me off air that the flyer idea was so people would get mad at you, tear it up, and basically throw it back in your face. That is a genius idea. Speaking of genius, it reminds me of the genius Lanny Poffo from WWF. He used to throw frisbees out for the same kind of principle, get people to throw them back or do something like that. Where did the idea come to hand out those flyers and kind of irate the people that way?
Well, it was a business card, and I will find that business card. I had it on my desk here. So it was a little business card that said Sebastian. It was we were promoting the wrestling school with it as well. So it's Sebastian and Hart Enterprises. And so I would tell people, you need to come and join our wrestling school, and we'll teach you how to wrestle in the right way, and you will learn a lot. Join our wrestling school. But I was doing it in such a way as to be obnoxious to these people I was handing the card to. Like, I'm here, I'm doing something for you. Simmer down and sit down, that kind of thing. And so I did it once, and there was a man who took the card and ripped it up and threw it back at me. And I said, that's the gimmick. If I can just get people to throw the thing back at me, we've got something to air on television, something that the camera can zoom in on. And we worked it like that. I must have passed out 1,000 cards over my time at the Sportatorium. And easily half of them were thrown back at me. The other half people kept, souvenirs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I said, I'm forward thinking. Even if I was a complete, mark and I hate this guy, I probably would have held on to it. Thought maybe I can get somebody to sign it. That would have been my thought. But there you go.
I may have signed some of them. I know I signed some bulletins.
There
People
you
want
go.
me to sign their bulletins, especially the last one. They had my picture on the front of it. Which was number 8 of the Grappler. So I did it for 8 Fridays, or Friday nights. And then after that, one of our colleagues took over and continued it from there. But the idea for the cards, maybe from Gray Pearson, who suggested that I have a prop or a gimmick. And particularly to be annoying to the people that I was handing them to, or to the people in the audience. The more annoying I could be, the greater heat I could generate. So at one point, maybe 6 months into it, or 7.
There it is again.
Yeah, I could walk up to the top in one of the corner entrances. I could walk and stand at the top and go like this, just put my fist up. And people would start chanting, "Weasel, Weasel, Weasel," which became my tag name for the longest time. following a storyline in which I poisoned Terry Sims'
That's right.
colon.
Yep.
We had Terry started foaming at the mouth, landed on the ring.
He, he did
My
the thing
guy
where his
won by
eyes rolled
default.
back in his head really well. That looked, it was fairly
Whatever,
convincing.
whatever you could put, he ended up too.
Yeah.
So whatever you could put on the television, by zooming a camera into it, I mean, we went for that kind of thing, and so we then ended up having a grudge match. So Terry Sims, when he came back, hit me over the head with a chair. Those collapsible kinds.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another kind of bump I took.
Mm.
And you could run a storyline for 6 or 7 weeks. And sometimes we ran them for months
Yeah.
in advance, like we did with the Ebony Experience.
Ebony Experience. Yeah. Harlem Heat. WWE Hall of Famers now. Booker T.
I
And
know,
Stevie
isn't that
Ray.
great?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And those were two beautiful men as well. Everybody at the Sportatorium was, they were like bikers in a motorcycle gang. Incredibly awesome to hang out with. They had something in common, the wrestling world, and they had a lot of diverse interests. Angel of Death, if you remember that guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Angel could talk literature amazingly well. I mean, I don't think that I mentioned any book or anything that I was studying at the school that Angel didn't have an opinion on and hadn't already read. I'm like, this guy is incredibly deep. He's incredibly profound, and he's 7 feet tall.
Scary looking guy, but he was a nice guy.
Scary looking guy, but a poet's heart. So.
Yeah. Never had the chance to talk to him. I did. Ironically, he was trained by the same guy who trained Rod Price and the things like that. A guy named Bill Anderson here in Arizona. Just talked to him recently. He always had nothing but nice things to say about Angel of Death as well. Just a really nice guy. You mentioned Gary Hart in passing, and when people do a list of the greatest wrestling managers of all time, Gary's on that list. He's top 10 for sure. Coming into it, what was the experience like working with him, and how did he treat you as well?
He treated me very well. He took me under his wing. He gave me practical advice every time we worked together. He wanted to work with me. I figured this guy's not going to want to work with me. I'm being thrown in by Gray Pearson into this assistant role with Gary Hart. But Gary's like, no, bring him on. We can make this work. We can turn this into a storyline. So Gary truly understood storylines, and he understood how to pivot me. He knew how to work me. He said, okay, what we're going to do is you're coming in as this sort of geek, nerd, computer brilliant guy from Des Moines. Hayseed, though your character is, he's got some brains, right? So let's exploit that. Bring in if you've got a laptop that is, that you don't mind our destroying. I said, yeah, I've got one. We had them at the college. So I came in and I started a storyline of Gray Pearson and Gary Hart, and I came up with this. So it wasn't my thinking at all, except maybe a suggestion. But we started a storyline of I'm preparing computer-assisted wrestling matches. And I'm using the computer to help me understand the strengths and weaknesses of all of the opponents, of anybody who's going to be fighting against my guys, Hollywood John Tatum and Rod Price. They weren't my guys; they were Gary Hart's guys, right? But as way led on to way in my own story arc, I started claiming everything that was Gary's. And so Gary was like, well, wait a second. You can't do that. That was our screen. And I said, Gary, you got to understand, I'm the brains, you're the brawn. So you just got to let the brains work on this one, Gary. Like, okay. So that was the relationship with me and Gary. He and I hung out sometimes outside of the Sportatorium. At least once I drove him home. And from there, we lost track of each other, as many work relationships, as happens in many work relationships, they're real, but they're site specific, they're location specific. And when I left in 1994, I joined the Peace Corps.
Oh,
and I
wow.
went to Africa for 2 years.
Wow.
Uh, I lost track of the of what was happening back home.
Mm.
I lost track of a lot of what was happening back home. 94 to 96, there was this whole thing called the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't know if you recall that. It was, but it
Oh,
was a blip
yeah.
on my radar. I showed back up and I was like, "Isn't this the same guy that was in that Bronco the night before I left?"
Yeah.
They said, "Yeah, he's still on television." I said, "Well, how long has this been going on?" They said, "2 years. It's all the news. It's every news cycle."
Every joke, every late night TV show, every time you turned on the TV, it was OJ's face in the courtroom for years. And it made celebrities out of people like the judges, Judge Ito and the Johnny
Right.
Cochran, the attorney. There was a whole lot of, it was like court TV, a constant.
And yeah, even the Kardashians,
There you
because
go.
the Kardashian was the lawyer, and he had a few daughters, and
There
those
you go.
daughters got their first television time from that.
Wow.
And now look at them, having built up what they have in reality television and associated products and things like that.
There you go. That's amazing. We've talked a little bit about the building. For some reason, it's got a little bit of its own aura, the Sportatorium.
Yeah.
I've heard it described as a dump. I've had a guy who booked for the USWA, which his name was Frank Dusick. He said the funny thing was a security guard said, "Come with me to the ring." This was in the middle of the day. And he stood him to the middle of the ring and he said, "Stay there." And he went and he turned the lights off. And like a planetarium, the light from outside would shine through from the bullet holes in the metal of the building. Um, he said it's amazing what you'd find in that building, but it's got a special place in my heart, even though I never ever set foot in it. What was the Sportatorium aura like for you?
Well, it was just that. For me, it was a historic landmark. The first day I showed up because of all the television watching I'd done in the 80s.
Mm,
Um, if ever the Sportatorium is torn down,
mm.
Dallas is going to lose a significant portion of its cultural history.
I
I
have some
mean,
bad
just
I have some bad news for you. It was tore down back in 2003.
I am shocked. I had so what's in its place now? What did they rebuild? Build on top.
Rubble and weeds. That's it. There is nothing there.
So
Um,
we could build the Sportatorium. We could relive the dream that was Camelot.
that is what I've suggested. There's a guy who runs MLW,
Uh-huh.
which is probably the number 4 wrestling promotion right now. And I said, see what you can do. See if you can buy it. And he kind of was like, oh, that's a good idea, but I don't think there's any, real thought being put behind it. But yeah, no, from what I understand, when the guys drive past that still live in the area, they all kind of instinctively turn their head, look at what used to be the Sportatorium, and kind of think, man, what that place was. But yeah, after Global closed, it started to become a haven for squatters, and
Um,
from what I understand, they burnt it down from the inside. So even though the facade was standing, like everything inside was pretty much toast.
Yeah,
And
that was what the fire marshal was concerned about. It was a fire hazard, that's for sure.
yeah,
Um,
and then they tore it down, and Kevin Von Erich was one of the ones that went in and grabbed things. And Doyle King actually took down the sign that says "Welcome to the world famous Sportatorium." He went and actually, with a screwdriver and a pickup truck, took it off the wall before they demolished it. So he still has that in his garage, the whole big sign that says "Welcome to the world famous Sportatorium."
if you ever talk to Doyle King, tell him I said hello.
I did. A few times. A few times. I think he had a recent loss of a child, so I've been kind of just you okay kind of things every now and again. But yeah, he's a nice guy. He's still doing, I believe it's traffic radio in Houston.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
It's interesting to learn where people moved, what happened to people after the Sportatorium years.
Mm,
I remember during COVID, I think it was July of 20,
mm,
there was planning to bring people back together. At least I got a postcard with it,
mm.
with a number of people who were wrestlers back in the early 90s on the card. I don't know whether or not you received anything like that. If I can find it, I'll send you a picture of it.
Interesting. Was it done by Alex Porto, do you know, or who was it done by?
Oh, I don't know. I just remember thinking, wow, this would be great timing if it weren't COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
I
That's
drive down because at the time that I received it, we were only 6 weeks into the 2 week shutdown to reset the world, right? Which ended up extending, for a year before the vaccines were available.
yeah.
Um, but I remember thinking, this could be worth a drive to Texas if these people are actually going to get together. But I didn't think it would happen because we were still being told to keep social distancing and all those other things.
Yeah, I think they
Uh,
still did it. I know that Alex Porteau, who was around when you were there, he was the light heavyweight champion, the beach bully, if you will.
all
Had the
right.
super soaker. Yeah, he had the super
Hey,
soaker.
Alex.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he was involved in doing it, and I don't think it took off as well as he had hoped, but I think that had a whole lot more to do with the fact that we all woke up in our favorite 70s sci-fi movie one day and you couldn't do anything. So that might add more to do with it than anything else. Uh,
Sure. Well, was there any video made of it? Was it recorded in any way?
if it was, I haven't seen it. Maybe some still pictures that I saw people post on Facebook, but I didn't see any video of anything like done. And it certainly wasn't done like with ESPN production, if it if it was. But there you go.
All
Um,
right. Well, and this perhaps is why I thought the Spuratorium was still around.
yeah,
I hadn't heard that it had been knocked down, but 2003 was what, 23 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
So you'd think that I've been living in St. Louis. I'm an expatriate up here in the frozen northern wilderness, right? So I've lost track of
yeah.
uh, of a lot of things that are going on in Texas. I go down a few times a year to see my family in Tyler, but
Mm.
how often I get to Dallas is very rare.
Yeah, Katie's an industrial. Katie's an industrial is nothing but a pile of weeds and rubble. They had originally planned to make like a high rise there instead,
Mhm.
and just nothing ever happened with it. It's still, as far as I know, weeds and rubble. That's it.
So the land's for sale,
The land is owned, but somebody's paying taxes on something they're not doing anything with.
which
So,
means which means it's for sale if you
which, yeah, if you think,
you know who to tap.
uh-oh,
All right.
am I
Well,
seeing a light bulb go over your head
yeah,
here?
there's at least one. You can actually put one over my head. This is a digital medium. You can do whatever you like with the video
There you
once we're
go.
done. Oh, wait a second. I've I just noticed I was fuzzy. I don't know how long I've been fuzzy. So
Ah, I didn't notice. You're looking good. Um, Let me ask you a question. It's a little bit inside baseball. It goes
sure.
back to the very beginning. You mentioned that the law firm and Gray Pearson and the lawsuit between the Jarretts and the Von
Right.
Erichs. Now, I assume this had to do with the building itself, had to do with the sportatorium. The Jarretts ran the USWA, which was what became of World Class when they switched it over, and then World Class as I believe his name was Joe Pedicino, was the one that kind of helped create Global, said that the USWA had become globalized, and that's when they changed the name to the Global Wrestling Federation.
Okay.
How in depth did you know what the lawsuit pertained?
Oh, I didn't have very much information on it at all.
Ah, okay.
Um, so I remember Gray saying that he became a promoter because of the lawsuit and because he was successful in assisting the Von Erichs in maintaining hold of the sportatorium.
Hmm.
Um, but in order to make the sportatorium profitable, it needed a better promotion, better marketing, you know. So Gray volunteered to do that work. He had for the longest time wanted to be a wrestling promoter,
Hmm.
and here was an opportunity for him to do it.
Yeah.
So I remember, would meet with Skandor Akbar and with Gary Hart and some other people who were in the roles of management there,
Hmm.
with Kevin and Kerry Von Erich and Chris Von Erich at one point would join the meetings. And they would talk, they would strategize, they'd say, what can we do here? How can we leverage the road shows in order to generate more interest in what we're doing, in terms of television? How can we sell more ads on television, and get people engaged? And they came up with this idea of merchandising cups or whatever for fast food restaurants,
Hmm.
with the GWF characters on it. And at one point, I remember I was interviewing some of these personalities for the sake of this grappler that they wanted me to continue doing or start doing. And that was before Sebastian from Des Moines was an idea, you know.
Right.
And I sent you one of the scripts. I mean, you can see the outcome of a lot of this planning would go into the scripting, and then the storylines that could follow for the next little bit. You know, whether or not it was going to be a short storyline, a grudge match that would happen in 3 weeks, or whether or not they could tie a storyline that was happening now into something that will happen 4 months from now, that kind of thing. Um, so in response to the question, you know, how much did I know about the lawsuit? Very little, but I knew quite a bit more about the outcome of the partnership and the relationships among the principal players that followed. So,
yeah, and you were there when Kerry Von Erich made his return to the Sportatorium, and a lot of people have said that that was kind of like Global's open window. They had an opportunity to capture the national spotlight again. Kerry was just fresh off of the WWF run as the Texas Tornado, and Doyle King, who we just mentioned when I interviewed him, he said 2 words 3 times in a row, very loudly, that kind of was ominous. He said, "Damn cocaine, damn cocaine."
right.
First, Kerry coming in, did you feel that that was making an impact on the business of Global, and thoughts on the way he checked out of this world?
Well, as you know, my character was one that manipulated, that cheated, you know, that gave Gary Hart all kinds of ideas on how to, you know, make certain that our guys always won. Now, in the world of wrestling, we're really talking about the world of good versus evil, right? Good guys win by virtue of their own character. Bad guys win by cheating. So a bad guy, in order to win, is going to do something to manipulate the outcome in a way that's favorable to himself. Whereas a good guy who's winning by merits of his own virtue is going to overcome that cheat and come out even stronger and more beloved. So my character was a scoundrel. My character, you know, that's how I got the name Weasel. When I signed the deal with, we put together a contract for the Ebony Experience. And the Ebony Experience were tag team champions of the world. They were good guys. Everybody loved the Ebony Experience, Booker T and Stevie Ray. But their mother, according to our storyline, had needed experimental cancer surgery. And when I said to Gary Hart, I said, I think I know how to get them. We'll pay for their mother's experimental cancer surgery in exchange for their signing a contract with us for life. And so we played on that one quite a bit, that we own these guys. They have to do what it is that we say, that kind of thing. And even though they could win on their own merits, they were with 2 evil wrestling managers, me and Gary Hart. So we started cheating, and they wanted to avoid the cheats, but they ended up losing, not because we were cheating in their favor. They lost because they didn't want to accept the cheats that we were doing. So Booker T and Stevie Ray became a kind of a force that we were trying to turn to the dark side, if you will. So with that kind of a storyline, that kind of an arc, we had Kerry Von Erich coming in, and Kerry Von Erich was like Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. You know, he was somebody who could, or Luke Skywalker, he could restore balance to the Force. He could save, be a significant part of saving our world. And so he was this great light that comes in to our world and brought into that world his own inner demons. So you may have seen the film Iron Claw.
Yes, absolutely.
So near the end of Iron Claw, is where my character would have entered had they decided to include my character in the film.
Okay, that's on my paper here. I was going to ask you about that, but there you go. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the question coming. So Kerry Von Erich was going to redeem me. He was going to turn me from an evil wrestling manager into a good guy. And of course, once I became a good guy, I could no longer be a manager because the only people who need managers are the evil people, right? The people who are representing the dark side of the force, as it were. Just totally mix all the metaphors I can possibly mix into this one example. So
Got Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. You got a whole lot of them. There you
all
go.
of it.
There you go.
So the Friday night before he took his life, he and I talked for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. How do we turn me, this person who's done all these bad things, how do we turn me into a good guy? And he said, in the world of wrestling, it's easy to flip. This is what we do. You are going to be out there doing your thing, and you're going to be cheating, and you're going to be trying to make us good guys look bad. So we were going to send in Tribal Nation, I think, or another group of people, a couple of tag teams, to come in and just completely act in character and try to beat up Kerry. In fact, all the bad guys were going to come in at once. Rugged Rod Price, Hollywood John Tatum. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy, right?
Right.
They were all going to come in, to pull that from the movie Wreck-It Ralph. They were all going to come in and start beating up on Kerry. Yep. And then I was going to suddenly have a change of heart and say, no, don't hurt him. Stop, you're actually hurting him. And I was going to jump in, and they were all going to turn on me. And they were all going to beat me up. And then Kerry would come in, and he would save me. The Christ figure, saving the lowly sinner.
Right.
And that was going to be how I turned into a good guy. So we had planned this all out, and I was very excited about doing it the following Friday. He took his life the day before, I think on a Thursday.
Oh, man.
And that was a blow. Not only did it result in my being a bad guy for another 6 months, so not just to my character, that was a blow to all of us. I mean, that was like a light had been snuffed out. I mean, morale was low. We were like, okay, well, what do we do now? And so we rallied around a way to celebrate Kerry's life. And so we ended up putting together a special sort of episode that praised Kerry and celebrated his life. Some weeks down the line from that, but
I don't think in the global era, I don't think I ever saw the building more full than the Atkinson Memorial show that you guys did.
That was totally people gathered. So that's how I experienced it. I was very low for weeks, just pondering how this great soul, who was so full of life the Friday prior and so full of energy and so excited about redeeming Sebastian from Des Moines, Sebastian the Weasel, Sebastian who, because of his experience with the Ebony experience, became Sir Sebastian, So that was it was hard on all of us, and we had no idea,
Man, that was a tough one. I was 12 when this happened, maybe 11 going on 12, and I have a magazine somewhere on the floor over here in one of these little magazine holders. It's got Andre the Giant and Kerry Von Erich, who died within a month of each other, and the title just said, "Heaven must have needed some heroes." And it kind of, when I picked it up as a kid, it kind of brought a tear to my eye, and for some reason, it still kind of hits you like, wow, that's a pretty heavy title, but there you go. That's amazing.
Must have needed some heroes. Well, there was two great lights. As we grow older, we find more and more of the people who formed us and who helped shape us into who we are today have passed on ahead of us. I'm 54, so a decade older than you are, and you turn on the television or now go to the internet, your news feed tells you somebody else has passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Heaven must have needed some heroes, and one of these days we'll get to see them again, I believe.
I
And
think so.
maybe we'll have resurrected the sportatorium in the great heavenly past the great heavenly gates, and we'll come back together and we'll be together for another match. Who knows?
That sounds great. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me. Do you have time for just a few more questions?
Yeah, we got all day.
All right. Well, don't say that. I'll keep you all day. All right. So here's a weird one that I wanted to ask you. And you're familiar with Jim Cornette? You know that name? Wrestling manager from the 80s and 90s. He does a podcast, and he was talking about Gary Hart. And they kind of started talking about something that I've secretly wondered for years. And I never knew how to ask anybody this because any way you ask it, it's going to make you sound like an idiot. So I'll just make myself sound like an idiot and ask it.
Right.
Do you know the ethnicity of Gary Hart? Was he African American or was he just a tan white guy? I don't think anybody really knew.
I always had the sense that he was Italian.
There you go. See, I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know if I picked up on any ethnicity other than like Caucasian in one form or another.
Yeah.
I do know that Skandar Akbar is Lebanese.
Mhm.
He's actually related to me. I didn't know this before working
Really?
at the sportatorium. His aunt Almaz was my great grandmother.
Wow.
And so we occasionally we had a chance to talk about things, and his real name was Jim.
Jimmy Weeba.
Yeah. So he I would go up and say, "Hey, Skander, what's the news?" And he would ask me what was going on in my life. And so one day he said, well, "Mahfoud, where's that come from?" I said, "Lebanon." He goes, "Oh, I'm Lebanese." Um, and I said, "Oh, well, my grandfather came over in the 1940s. He had been born and raised in Jamaica." And he perked up and said, "Where in Jamaica?" And I said, "Well, outside Kingston." I said his mother was Almaz Farani and his father was, and he said, "Auntie Almaz?" And I said, "Yeah." So, so it
Wow.
was it was kind of neat having that connection. But for Gary Hart, I'm not certain. I'm not certain that it was even a thought in my mind to ask.
Kind of a full circle thing. When Gary passed away, and
Sure.
I did a little bit of a tribute to Gary Hart, and I had on Skandor Akbar, who was still with us at that time. And my wife, to this day, whenever I watch Global, which is more often than anybody should, by the way, I still watch a lot of Global. Um, Whenever I watch Global, he comes on, she says, "Oh, that Skandor Akbar, he was so nice," because she answered the phone when he called,
Yeah.
and he said he called her ma'am, and he said, "And how are you doing today, ma'am?" And it was just a nice guy to her, and not at all like the general character that we saw on TV, for
Right.
sure.
Well, when you get on television and you're trying to promote, a sort of an idea of a way of life, as the wrestling kingpin or whatever, you assume a persona that could be completely opposite what your normal persona is. Like I was talking earlier about Angel of Death.
Mhm.
The guy had this persona of being a heavy metal bike dude, and he spent his free time reading poetry. I mean, this was and not just any poetry. I think he and I talked once about the poetry of Sir Walter Scott. So
Wow.
he was all of these characters had very full lives outside of the wrestling hall. And when we came together in the wrestling hall, we did what you see on television or what you've seen on television. We put together, we played roles that enabled us to move through the storylines in a convincing way.
Very cool. And I used to do a thing called word associations. And everybody thinks when I say word associations, I'm like, what do you see on this ink blot? And just give a one word answer. That's not necessarily the case. If you have a story you want to tell, that's cool too. Just go in and do it. I was first name on the list. We talked to him about him a little, about when you drugged him. And he famously called you a germ. I'd never heard it pronounced that way before. Not a germ, but a germ. I'm talking about Terry Garvin Sims, who, by the way, I will let you know, unfortunately has passed away as well.
Oh, wow. Um,
That's coming up an
You're going to make
anniversary.
me cry. All of these guys are like, sure, I moved away and I lost track of everybody, but you've got me back into the year 1992.
That's what I'm
So,
trying to do, but I'm not trying to make you cry. It's
yeah.
happened before,
Well,
though. I have made you know Tyrus, the big guy who's on Fox News all the time?
sure.
Tyrus?
Yeah.
I made him cry. He was talking about
Oh,
Dusty Rhodes, and he started to, excuse me a sec, and he kind of did that. I'm like,
oh gosh.
it's, I didn't think I'd do that with a big guy like that, but what can you do? But
Yeah. Um, so Terry was great. We came up with this storyline. He's like, okay, let's run with it. I'm like, Terry, this means you got to like pretend that I become a real bad guy here for poisoning you. And when it came out, he poisoned my Coke, and we put that in one of the newsletters.
mm,
If one of the grapplers, the bulletins is really what they were.
mm.
Um, and he was like, no, no, this is how we work the angle, and I've got to be gone next week anyway. So when I come back, we'll say that I was in the hospital, and um, he was he was a good man. So so if I were to think of anything about Terry, that was one of the first pratfalls that the first major things that I did that was evil was the poisoning of Terry Sims.
Yeah.
Um, and it's when he called me the Weasel there at ringside when we were doing color, or when he was doing color, that name stuck for the rest of my time there. And whenever I would walk in, it was Weasel, Weasel. And that was because of that one incident with Terry, and he was good-natured about it, and made me feel, even though he then hit me with a chair, made me feel like I was one of them, So
Even at the end of your match, the Phantom X match, when you cheated to win, they cut to the audience when you did your dastardly deed. They always did that. Rod Price calls it um, wrestling's after school special,
okay.
because of the way that they wouldn't let you show certain things. There was an incident where Eddie Gilbert threw a fireball at Terry Garvin, and of course they didn't show that. They wouldn't let you see that. Did you guys like that, or did you hate the fact that they were censoring you on the biggest output you had, which was the ESPN outlet?
So there was a time where we weren't on ESPN.
Mm.
ESPN had pulled out for a little bit, and we were just on Channel 11. Channel 11, I think, gave us a lot more freedom.
Hmm.
So
Was that KTVT?
um, maybe I don't remember the station. It would have been in Texas at the time. But I do remember that I was able to have a grudge match with Tawanda, with the sister of the Ebony Experience. ESPN would not have aired, from what I understand, that match between a man and a woman.
Mm.
Um, but I don't think Channel 11 had a problem with it. So Channel 11 let us use blood. So, when Black Bart would take his razor blade out of his wristband and cut his head a little bit and then smear the blood.
Mm.
Um, uh, Channel 11 would let us do that. I don't think ESPN would. So in a sense, we felt a little more free when ESPN wasn't there, but we understood the value of ESPN for marketing, for promotions, for commercials, for basically revenue.
Mhm.
So so I don't remember anyone talking about limitations or things outside of they're being upset about them. I mean, I don't recall anybody expressing upset about the limitations. If we knew we had limitations, we just lived within the limitations, and we organized our storylines around those limitations. But even now, I think that if you were to look for the video of my wrestling match with Tawanda, I don't know whether or not you'd find it because I don't know what happened to it. I know there were cameras there. I know somebody filmed it, maybe Channel 11, but I don't think I ever saw it on television or replayed or whatever. So
Yeah, and being in New Jersey, when you guys weren't on ESPN, we did get certain episodes that would air on, I want to say it was called Sports Channel America, that would air, but there was no like every day at 4 o'clock. It was like it would just be on. So unless you were You know, there was no DVRs back then, so you couldn't like set it to just record if it aired. You had to know when it was on, and it was never on at
You
the
need to
same
be in
time.
front of the television to do it.
Yep,
So,
real
so
time.
nowadays we experience this if we go to YouTube and somebody's uploaded the video,
Yes,
like they
exactly.
did with my Phantom X match.
There you
Uh,
go.
but you know, maybe one day some of these archives will be found and people will release them. You know, that's still a possibility. It's possible that some of the television stations or someone still has copies of this, even in VHS tape,
There you go.
that they
But
would be able to distribute or to make available.
yeah, absolutely. A couple of the other ones that you've crossed paths with, we already talked about John Tatum with his potato that he gave you. But how about we mentioned him a lot in passing, but how about Rugged Rod Price?
So Rugged Rod Price was brilliant. I mean, this is a man who knew how to work a crowd. And during the tag team matches with Hollywood Sean Tatum, they always appeared to me to be very coordinated. They looked like they were very used to working together. Uh, they tolerated my storyline in some ways, and they embraced it in others. Um, so my storyline, you had mentioned earlier before this call in our correspondence with one another, was similar to a guy in New York named Jameson.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard about Jameson in '92. Somebody said to me once, and before that, he wasn't on my radar. You're kind of like that Jameson guy at WWF. Um, I purposely never watched anything that Jameson put together. I didn't watch WWF because of that, because I didn't want my character to be influenced or appear to be mimicking another character in another wrestling hall. But I remembered at the time, I was like, okay, so there's somebody else doing something similar to what I'm doing. Maybe that means that what I'm doing works. And so I kept at it. But Rugged Rod Price was there from the very beginning. He was in the corral with Gary Hart when I came on as Gary Hart's assistant. And all the way through my entire storyline, my entire character arc, um, he and it was a pleasure for me to work with him and to learn from him. And I remember some of the conversations that we had. He was always human when he talked. He was always very personable, and he gave me kind of big brother advice, you know, when I needed it, and I admire him greatly for all of that. I mean, and it's indicative of what everybody at the wrestling hall did. You know, everybody supported everybody else.
That's very
Again,
cool.
they had full lives outside of there, but they came together and we had a full life together. So it was nice.
Rod is currently back in the wrestling business. He's a trainer for a new promotion called World Wrestling Texas. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring back Friday Night Wrestling every Friday night at this venue that they bought. They bought a old movie theater, and they've
Okay.
kind of retrofitted it so it would be used as an arena. Obviously, we're not talking the size of the Sportatorium,
Yeah.
but yeah, but they're trying to do something, and I think it's very interesting that Rod is training the next generation of guys because I can't think of a better guy to do it because he's very even tempered, that's for sure.
It's a little like when Rocky Balboa comes back and mentors the next generation down the line, you know.
Mentors Creed, there you go, yeah, that works.
Right, right. And so that is very cool what Rod is doing. He reached out to me on Facebook
Oh,
uh,
cool.
just after you did, so I don't know whether or not you told him that.
I did. I sent him the link. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I asked him how he was doing. He's doing well. He asked me about myself, so yeah. So we started talking again, and to have that kind of connection from from somebody I admired and liked 35 years ago,
That's very cool.
it makes me feel grounded,
Mm.
in all the things that I might have done since. This was a formative moment in my life this year in the Sportatorium.
Was
Um,
there any resistance to the fact that here's this young guy? Because I'm doing the math. If I was 11 watching it, you were 21 years old.
I was
Uh,
21, yeah.
yeah, you're doing this. Was there any resistance from the guys that, hey, why is he getting so much TV time?
You know, in some cases, some people asked, you know, where I came from. You know, they were curious because I just appeared with Gray Pearson, you know. So they knew that that the promoter was changing, and they knew that some of the direction would change. So Gray made some changes when he got in, and those changes didn't always settle right. You know, some people may have felt that, you know, they had a greater role before, and they're not having such a great role now, or they may not have liked the way in which the storylines were put together. You know, any number of things that wouldn't have had anything to do with Gray necessarily, or with the storylines or with whatever, but would have had to do with change. So you know how people will respond sometimes to change in a way that they're either comfortable with what was happening, they're comfortable with the habits they'd been allowed to form, and then change happens and they've got to retool themselves around a new reality. So, so if there was anything like that, it would have been in my coming in as somebody new who was coming in as a friend of the promoter. And what was my, you know, how is this going to change them? How is this going to change their dynamic and their the way in which they work together? And I think after the first few months, we had settled back into a comfortable way of moving forward. But I do know there was some change. And if there was any concern about my presence there, I think that may have been why. I experienced it as somebody who was accepted, you know, coming in as somebody who I was an outsider. I had no knowledge of the wrestling world in terms of any role that I had been trained to play. But I found helpers along the way, such as the chiropractor, such as Rod, such as John Tatum and Angel of Death and Gary Hart and Jim Skandar Akbar. Who proved to be good mentors. They understood what it meant to onboard somebody new. And if the nature of my character, I remember one person asked me about it. He said, you know, what am I supposed to be? We were in the locker room and I was getting ready for one of the sets. And I said, you know, at core, I'm sort of, my role is sort of one of a clown. You know, I come in, I generate heat, I rile people up, but I'm also somebody who can help frame and role play a storyline. And I think that was the best way to characterize who Sebastian the Weasel was. He was a drifter who just appears, you know, into a storyline, into a set of roles, into a set of storylines that are already moving forward and have their own deep history. You know, the entire world of the 80s. I came in 1991, 1992. 92 was my big year. But I was somebody who could generate heat and could carry a storyline.
I just got two more for you, if you don't mind, and then we'll be done for the day.
So if that answers the question at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In terms of my reception, I was a new kid on the block, and they needed to onboard me, and they did. So
beautiful. I have two more for you. Just looking at the grappler, one of the ones that I read just before we got on here was the bungee cord match one, which was out of this world. The fact that you guys were trying anything at that point, which was cool because people were talking about it. You know, being a kid at the lunch table, people were talking about the fact that, hey, these guys are taking bumps, you know, out of a crate that's suspended by a crane. Pretty crazy. Was there any matches that you remember watching back at that time that you thought, wow, we're really pushing the envelope, we're going a little crazy here?
The storylines that we were doing were a bit more, they were different from the kinds of storylines that were in the 80s. I mean, Gray wanted to try a lot of different things and see what stuck. So he threw a lot of things at the wall. I remember the bungee match was a point of real interest for us because, somebody was going to fall from that height. And so what they did was the heel ends up pushing the good guy off, if I remember correctly.
It was
And
Stephen Dane was the heel, and Chaz was the
Chaz was the good guy.
babyface.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
So what we did was we made certain we had a professional bungee company come out and help us on this. We made certain that the rope would have been just the right length. And so we shortened it considerably because we knew that the crane was going to be coming down when he was thrown off. And I remember thinking, a lot could go wrong here,
Right.
But it turned out well. I mean, they pulled it off. It was ultimately a well-planned stunt that did generate the kind of response they wanted it to generate, which was to get people excited and interested in knowing things. Another one of the stunts I mentioned earlier was Manny Fernandez's destruction of Manny Villalobos' car.
With the
Joe Greed coming in and giving a car in the first place. The biggest stunt that I participated in was the match with Tawanda. The Ebony experience, they were tired of my telling them what to do all the time and my not letting them see their mother. And this Sir Sebastian title that I had adopted, I said Queen Elizabeth II gave me the title of Sir Sebastian because I brought them the Ebony experience. And I was able to do a command performance at Buckingham Palace on such and such a day. And somebody pointed out, didn't Windsor Palace burn down because of you? And of course, they fit the storyline perfectly. The weekend I was supposed to be there, Windsor burned down. And I was walking around, or had been walking around for months with my pipe, telling people that I could smoke and they couldn't because I was responsible. And, it just spontaneously turned into a storyline. So I left in the middle of the night and abandoned Booker T and Stevie Ray in London in order to escape with my own life. And there I was gallivanting around the Sportatorium while Booker T and Stevie Ray were still trying to find their way home. That kind of thing. So we had some very interesting storylines, and they were very cartoon-like, comic book-like storylines. And they were intended to give the Sportatorium a kind of pop and sizzle that Gray felt could reinvigorate the world of wrestling in Dallas, Texas, and in terms of getting actual people to come to the Sportatorium to see them, in terms of getting greater television coverage that would have led to revenues from ads, or greater revenues from ads, that kind of thing. So.
Did you have anything to do with Big John Hawk, who ended up being JBL?
Not directly.
Okay.
His storyline and my storyline never intersected.
All right. Well, I guess my final question for you is, two final questions. One of them is about wrestling. One of them is just about you. Do you watch any modern wrestling? And what do you think of where we're at now with how the wrestling product looks?
So I do not watch modern wrestling. So that was a chapter in my life where I was very engaged in the world of wrestling in 92 and 93. Well, it started in 91, but in 93 I was getting ready to go to the Peace Corps. So it was what I did then. I enjoyed it. And then when I left, the magic of wrestling left with me, in terms of my interest in keeping up with what was happening in the World Wrestling Federation or in the World Class Wrestling, or even in the Sportatorium. It was a memory. It wasn't something that I pursued down the line, except every now and then I was pulled back into it. In the early 2000s, somebody who was very invested in developing a fantasy wrestling league wanted permission to use my character.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I don't think I need to give you permission. It was a public character. I don't own any rights to it. Feel free if you want to include it in the fantasy wrestling league. I remember occasionally coming back and showing my students what I had done. I taught. I've taught now for 35 years since then.
Yeah, that was my final question was going to be, who is Sebastian these days? So since you're going into that, I'll just ask it here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, to close the parenthesis on the question, though, my love of wrestling is one of nostalgia. I just thought that if I kept up with wrestling and if I kept watching wrestling, I would be disappointed, or I would be sad, and I'd miss my time in it a little more than I should.
Mm.
So I was willing to close the chapter.
And I
But
kind of did that to you by mentioning how many of the people we've lost. So I can see that too.
yeah.
That would have that impact on you. So I apologize for that. And I didn't mean
No,
to do that
that
to
is
you.
fine. I mean, you brought me back into it. You have done what other people have tried to do and have not been successful. You have allowed me the opportunity to relive my time at the Dallas Sportatorium, and for that I'm grateful and I thank you.
I'll give you
Uh,
another quote from a movie. Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in from The
that's right. That's
Godfather.
Michael Corleone and The
There you
Godfather,
go.
right?
There you
So
go.
I expect this will happen every now and then for the rest of my life. Somebody will find this, for instance, this interview on your station, and they'll reach out to me and say, "Hi, I remember you then." Um, and there were people at the Sportatorium who were not wrestlers that became friends of mine. There was this one father-son team. The son's name was Buddy, who took photographs and handed me over dozens and dozens of photographs. Every time I came back, they'd say, "These are your pictures from last week," and they took pictures of everything.
Mm.
So somewhere in one of my boxes, I've got maybe 150 or so photographs that Buddy and his dad took for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been talking about doing a book myself about global, but I think that's something you should think about doing. Putting a book out about your life because it's not just wrestling, but you do have a very cool story about wrestling, and then everything you've done
sure.
since would be a very interesting read as well.
I would actually I would very much enjoy collaborating with you on that. So you asked me what I'm doing now.
Yes,
What
sir.
has what has Sebastian Mofford been doing for 35 years that he hasn't invested himself as fully as he should be in the wonderful world of wrestling that was such a an important, informative part of his life growing up.
Mhm.
So I went to North Africa. I started my professional life teaching at one of the universities in the Sahara Desert. And in the Sahara Desert, you're on a horse with no name.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, there
so
you go.
it,
It was.
it-
I'm trying to think who did that song. Oh my gosh, was it America? It might have been America that did that song.
oh,
Anyway,
maybe I didn't
there you
know,
go.
but I went to the desert on a horse and no. So I got back a couple of years later. Went back to Dallas. I worked a little bit to get ready to move to St. Louis, where I was going to get married. I met my wife, Stephanie, while we were Peace Corps volunteers together in Africa. And I lived in St. Louis exactly half my life. I
Oh,
remember passing the 27-year mark. I moved up here when I was 27, and I'm 54 now.
mm,
Um, I we had children. Alexander is my son. He's 21, and Eva is my daughter. She's 17. We both Stephanie and I work in higher education. So I taught in a English composition and literature and all those wonderful things I was studying back when I was in the university during my sportatorium days.
mhm.
Um, I started working at a place called Kenrick Glennon Seminary, which is now one of the 37 major seminaries in the United States. And I began teaching people how to use technologies in their learning environments. And how do you use smart rooms and how do you use the internet for teaching and that kind of thing. I developed a program that taught the teaching faculty in all of the seminaries how to teach online. And then I moved to a school. I've worked remotely since 2012. In 2012, I started working as a distance learning director for Holy Apostles College and Seminary. And we put together a program of study that people could complete entirely online, an undergraduate degree, master's degrees.
That's
And
amazing.
so in 16, I formed my radio station, WCAT Radio, in order to help promote something I had built in the year prior, a publishing house.
Mhm.
And in the past 11 years, I've published almost about 700 Catholic books and put together over 7,000 podcasts supporting and promoting those books and promoting other things. So when you said, "Hey, can we do a show together?" I was like, "Yeah, radio,
Yeah.
podcasting. This is fun." So and that's what I've been doing. I've been promoting the our Catholic faith tradition globally in the past 25 years. So
Beautiful. Well, I can't believe when I looked you up and I was looking up. I'm going to let you in on a secret.
uh,
Jameson, you mentioned Jameson.
sure.
I just interviewed him 2 days ago. 2 days ago, and I
How
thought
is he?
he's good. He's good.
All right.
He's the manager of a ShopRite in New York, which is like Kroger, one of the big grocery stores. He
Okay.
doesn't do a lot in wrestling anymore, but he's getting his action figure made, which is kind of cool. They're making an action figure of the characters.
That's great.
So yeah, with my stuff back here, you can tell that that's something I'd be interested in. But yeah, no, he's getting an action figure made up. He's doing good. But when was interviewing him or going to be interviewing him, I thought your name just kept like simultaneously popping in my head, and I'm like, I wonder if I could find Sebastian. And I did, and I looked up and I said doctor, and I'm like, wow, he might be way too big to be interested in doing anything with me. But and I said, well, I'll send a message. I don't know for sure it's him. Your picture, it's you. You haven't changed that much, but I thought, is this you? And
Have
maybe
less hair.
maybe a little, yeah. Well, we're all gonna get there. I'm gonna get there soon too. Um, yeah, just I was so glad when you responded. It meant so much to me that you did respond, and the openness of sending me things like the bulletins and the script and things like that. You're a great guy. I really appreciate it. And if I ever do sit down and write this book, which my new job would afford me the time to do, it seems to be my destiny. I think I am going to write down the history of global. I'm going to have to get in contact with Gray Pearson to get the rest of the story, though. But
He's
um,
accessible. You can find him on. He is a partner in a law firm. He runs a law firm in Dallas, Texas.
yeah,
You can find him rather easily.
there's a few guys that have said I should talk to him, so I might do that to get like the end part of the story. But I think there's a lot of meat on the potato when it comes to global because so many guys my age grew up. You left school, you ran home, you grabbed a snack, and by 4 o'clock, global on ESPN. You knew it was going to be there, and it was there for 2 years plus. So I think there's a lot of meat on that potato, meat on the bone, if you will. Um,
Really, we were the product of the 80s. We were in the early 90s. We were latchkey children.
ah,
So when you got home, your parents weren't there. You had a couple of hours to kill before they showed up. Turning on the television in the afternoon and watching, a couple of matches. That was fun in the 80s. And we had time for it. And I had no idea at the time that the good Lord was preparing me to become a player in that world, if even for a short time. So if you do talk to Jameson again, or if Jameson is watching this, which I hope he will, that is my one. If I could list out my regrets
ah,
from 1992, my time at the Sportatorium, it would have been not getting to know Jameson,
mm,
simply because I was compared to him a lot.
mhm.
And I thought one of these days I got to reach out to that guy. But he may not be interested in talking to me. I'm just, I'm in a much lower profile here in Dallas, Texas. Um,
It,
but I understand why I didn't. I didn't want my character to be influenced by what his character was doing. So
in a strange way, it's similar to me doing podcasts. I almost never watch an interview with the person that I'm interviewing because if I do, I find that I replicate it, and I don't want to do a carbon copy of somebody else's. I want to do my own thing. So it's
you
kind
did
of,
it.
yeah,
That's it.
exactly. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking this much time with me, and it's rare that the the guest is the one hosting, so I'll depend on you
Right, sure.
to send
Well,
this to me. But
yeah, I'll send this to you. Do whatever you want to with it. Edit it however you like. You've been great, James. Thank you so very much for reaching out to me, and thank you for what you're doing. And when you do get ready to publish your book, I know a publisher.
oh, good. Yeah, I have a friend that does. It's called Walking on Hot Waffles. That's what it stands for. WOHW. He does a lot of wrestling books, like he did Ken Patera and
Go with that guy.
yeah,
He already has the market.
he's got the market, but
Sure.
I got the feeling he might be cooling off on the idea. So I'll have to do a bang up job with the book for him to do it. But well, if all else fails, please do stay in contact, and maybe we could work something out too. So that would be
Sure.
great.
Well, even if let's say you publish this thing with this other guy, I'm happy to help you promote it on WCAT Radio. I'm happy to come back out and reveal who I am to the world that currently knows me as something completely different than the evil wrestling manager from the early '90s at the Dallas Sportatorium, the Global Wrestling Federation.
Those were amazing times, and I thank you so much for reliving them with me. And I'm sorry for the dark side that I had to bring out with Terry Sims passing away, and Stephen Dane, and Black Bart, and Manny Villalobos, and all these names. Calvin Knapp, all these guys have passed away. But there you go.
I will spend some time praying for these guys, and I will spend some time crying.
Yeah.
But off air, since if I start praying for them now, I don't know if I won't cry. That's such memories and such great people.
Yeah, Terry Garvin is another one that if I do write the book, that I would like to do it for, because he did such a great interview, similar to this one, with me. And at the end of it, he said, James, with you, I just bore my soul. And that meant so much to me. And it was like 2 years before he passed. And every now and again, I see it pop up on YouTube. Somebody comments on the video and they say, wow, that was a great interview. I never knew all these things about him. So to be the guy that cares enough to shine the light on the Sportatorium and the Global Wrestling Federation, I'm happy to be that. If that's my lot in life, I'm happy to bear that cross.
Well, God bless you and your work. That's you're doing something really fine here.
I appreciate that. Well, I'll let you go. My voice is cracking up. I don't know what happened to me. I guess I talked too long. You've seen I got a problem. I have a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke here, and I drink like 2 of these a day. So that's my only vice in life is caffeine. So there you go.
God bless you. Well, you know, my relationship with caffeine is something very similar. I have a genetic disorder, and my body doesn't naturally produce caffeine on its own, so I have to take supplements.
Oh, wow. Well, like are we talking like no dose, or are they more medical things than that?
It's a joke.
Oh.
The body, nobody's body produces caffeine.
Oh. See, that's why you're the doctor and I'm the guy who does wrestling interviews. All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time and doing this with me.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze.
The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, guys.
We had a lovely conversation.
First lady.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter. Oh, my God.
what? You win!
Love being interactive.
Whoa!
Listen!
I was gonna shoot him. Yeah, I almost missed my pants. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. Excuse my language. Getting over the shot. No, we're giving many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional wrestling.
In the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure to tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day.
It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.